Hello and welcome to Bookish avec moi after 2 weeks from the last Bookish avec moi. Yeah, that's right. Last week I didn't do any video, and when that happens, when I don't come up with any video, usually it's because I experience some kind of dip in my energy level, and therefore, yeah, no videos out. But usually when that happens, it is also accompanied with some kind of lower reading mood as well. So I would say these 2 weeks I didn't really do a lot of reading. In fact, I only experienced some kind of return in my reading mood for the last 2 to 3 days, I think, which, it's a good thing because we're going into August and it's going to be Women in Translation, which is really awesome. I have some books that I am getting ready for my TBR, but I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I also have some plans in August, which I think is going to be kind of awesome as well. Mostly relate to readathons organized by other individuals in the bookish community. So yeah, in this video I'm not going to talk about a lot. First of all, as usual, I'm going to talk about books that I have finished. So technically I finished 3 books, but 2 of those books are the books that I'm doing for the Book to Prize, which means that I finished all books for the Book to Prize, and I think the results should come out today if I were to upload this on 1st of August. But yeah, I'm not going to talk about those books. I'll have a separate video for them. I have finished, the other book that I can talk about. I have finished Redemption in Indigo by Karen Lord. So Karen Lord is a Barbadian author, and I kind of wanted to read this book for Caribathon in June, but then, it took me about 2 months or 1 month and a half to finish this book, even though it's a very short book. And, well, honestly speaking, I wasn't really feeling this book, but I finished it. So before I talk more about it, what is this book about? Redemption in Indigo is about this woman who lives in a village called Makenda. I think it's somewhere in Barbados, I think. So she lives in this village, and she's married to this man who is a big glutton, who eats a lot and embarrasses her family on numerous occasions. His name is Ansige. So she really wants to leave this man, and one day she just, she's able to leave her. And around the time when that happens, a trickster spirit of sorts gives her a stick which has some kind of powerful magic attached to it. So with that stick, she would be able to do awesome magical stuff, supposedly, but she's not really aware of that at first. So she just thought that she has that stick, and it's just a random stick. And when the person who owns that power, a very powerful kind of supernatural entity, the Indigo Lord, I think it's called in this novel, that Indigo Lord who has power over chance and chaos, he wants his power back. He wants that stick back. So he pursues Pama in order to get that power back from her. And so he kind of acts like as an antagonist in this book. So in the later part of this book, we see how their interaction, whether the Indigo Lord is going to be able to successfully get that power back from Pama or not. So essentially that's what this book is about. And I just didn't really like it because I think mainly it's because of the narration style, which I think is a little bit it feels kind of disruptive due to the fact that the narrator tends to once in a while provide some meta level commentary on the story, the plot, the character, sort of interacting with the reader and reminding us that this is a story. What you're reading is a story, and this is how the character is going to be like, and this is what I'm going to do with the story, and sort of thing. And I just thought that when the author does that, when the narrator does that, when the narrator and the author does, do that, it feels like it stifles the flow of this novel. And every time that happens, I feel like I'm being pulled violently out of the immersive experience of the story. So whenever the commentary portion of the that commentary portion ends and I want to get back to the story, I just feel like it's so tiring to just kind of get that mood, immersive mood again. And I would say reading this entire book, even though it's a fairly small book, it kind of makes me feel kind of fatigued. Another part that doesn't really work with me with this book is how how the character Palma in this book progresses. So I like to see it as this two halves. This book having two halves. So the first half, we are established with the character Palma, and we get to know her, how she is as a person. And she is described as someone who is kind of virtuous, level-headed, rational, talented. She's just a all-rounded good character, but she does not feel like a Mary Sue. I just want to point that out. She does not feel like impossibly perfect. But she feels like this really good character that we would feel inclined to root for. Now, on the second part of this book, somehow Palma is the character that has to learn something, which is totally fine. But it feels like the second part of this book really wants to hammer that lesson on Palma. So, and initially I thought that it was really, really strange, and I couldn't really explain why that, why that felt weird to me. But then after a while, I just sort of realized that it's because in the first part of the novel, we weren't really introduced to a weakness of Palma that would warrant her to learn that lesson in the second part of this novel. We see her as this really nice character. We just sort of want to root for her, and we want to see her succeed in this novel. And suddenly she becomes someone who is being hammered with lesson on the second part. So it's really strange. I think that if it were more obvious that in the first part it is established that she should learn something through over the course of this novel, then it would have been more organic. It would have been less strange. So I think overall this book kind of had this strange vibe going on. And as a result, I didn't really like it. So yeah, those are all the books that I have finished. I'm not going to talk a lot about books that I'm currently reading, because again, I'm reading a few books at the same time, and there are a lot of them. But I'm just going to mention that I'm still reading this one. I know I've mentioned this book so many times across so many Bookish avec mois. It has been a while since I started reading this book. I started reading it in May, I think, but I still have not finished it. This is The Man with the Compound Eyes by Ming-Yi, translated by Darryl Sterk from Chinese to English. And I hope that this coming week I'll be able to finish it. So, yeah, those are all the bookish updates that I have for you guys. And for the rest of this video, I think about doing a kind of fun thing, which is tag. It has been a while since I did a tag. And this is the Books and Life tag, originated by Steve Donahue, and I was tagged by Sean of Sean the Book Maniac. And it's kind of fun, and also I don't really have to take out books and show it to you guys with the questions, with the prompts. So it's gonna be very relaxing. Yeah, let's start at number 1. Question number 1. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a normal person and 10 being the late Harold Bloom, how much are books and reading a part of your life? And for this question, I would love it to be 9 or 10, but I would say at this moment it would probably be about 7 or best 8. I would say usually it is 7, because To tell you the truth, and this probably sounds blasphemous on BookTube, I don't always enjoy reading. So yeah, I just said that. And that is because there will be time when I want to read, but I find myself, I find it difficult to get into whatever I'm reading because of whatever reason. Usually it's because of my mood. I tend to experience mood swings, and I also experience anxiety from time to time, also a little bit of depression, and so those things really affect my reading mood. And often what I realize is that I can't use reading to help with those. I need to deal with those in order to enjoy my reading. But I would just, would love to experience one day being able to kind of use reading as a coping method. But yeah, right now, because of those things, reading is not like a very, very big part of my life. It's fairly big, but it's not like extremely big as some people would be inclined to think about me. So the second question would be, where does your personal library stand right now in relation to the rest of your life? Do you have more books now than you ever have, or fewer? How has your library changed? So for this question, I would say, yeah, my personal library is really big compared to how it was before. I like to compare it with the time before I lived in my current city, which is Johor Bahru. So after I lived in the city, that pretty much means after I get my after I started my first job, which means that, after I got my first paycheck, and now that I have my own income, I sort of have this more freedom and more power to purchase my own stuff, and that includes books. And yeah, that kind of leads to me having plenty of books right now. And it sort of worries me because I'm living in a rented space, a rented house, and I might have to move out. I plan to do so next year, and having all these books with me, it might pose some difficulty if I were to do that. But at the same time, when I see the books that I have, I sort of feel kind of happy with how I end up right now. And it just makes me feel kind of hopeful about the future, seeing all these different kinds of books that I could read and then just randomly pick up next month or next year, and probably see how my life is going to be changed by those books. So but yeah, compared to my life before I started my first job, my personal library is really, really big. So number 3, take a mental step back and ask yourself, what is the most likely first bookish impression a newcomer would have in your home? I rarely have anybody visiting my room or my house right now, and those that do would be my parents, my family, and they probably already have like bookish opinions on me anyway before that. As for my friends, I think they would probably think that I read a lot. Going back to the first question, they would probably think that reading as a part of my life would be like 9 out of 10. That's what they would probably think. And I think that is also partly due to the fact that most of my friends, they are not really big readers. And so when I see me reading, they just automatically assume that, I live for reading. And yeah, I would say that that's probably what they would think about me, you know, that I read every day, I read daily, I read every second, every minute of my life. So yeah, obviously that's not true, but yeah, that's probably what they would think. Number 4, how often, if ever, do you clean or reorganize your books? And you know, first part of this question, clean my books, I actually found myself cleaning my books from time to time, because my room can be quite dusty sometimes, and so I would just kind of, you know, I would end up with a layer I would end up with a layer of dust on my books, especially the ones that are exposed, and I would just sort of wipe the books on the side of my pants and so my dark colored pants will have like a line of dust on them because I wiped the books on my pants. And well, that's the, you know, the extent of me cleaning my books. As far as reorganizing my books, I actually put my books in stacks on the floor. Majority of them are in stacks. I have 2 tiny shelves which are really tiny, with, you know, if you compare it to the size of my book pile. So in terms of reorganizing, usually it's because when I want to browse or get certain books that are located way you know, hidden inside the pile, the bottom of the pile, I would just sort of make them messy and I would have to rearrange them again. So reorganizing, that's the only time I would reorganize them, just so that they you know, I have better space in my room. But yeah, I don't really reorganize them in a sense that, you know, putting them nicely on shelves and such. So yeah, that's that. 5, on average, how many books do you acquire in a given week? In recent months, I've been trying to cut down on my book purchase, but I think considering the size of my book collection right now, and over the period of after I received my first paycheck, which is about 4 years ago, I would say on average I would, you know, I got like 1 or 2 books per week. I would estimate it as such. So number 6, it's really random. What song is my current earworm? And it would be this one. Well, I guess I just, you know, kind of randomly stumbled upon this song while I was listening to Spotify at my desk at work, and somehow it just stuck in my head. And when it comes to earworms, I usually change earworms from week to week. So this song is not going to be like a permanent earworm for me. I think next week I'll probably have a new song that is stuck in my head. Number 7, what percentage of your self-control do you retain in a well-stocked bookshop? I think it depends on a few factors. The most important factor is how much money I have on me. If it's the end of the month, probably I would have less money and I would have more self-control. If it's the beginning of the month and I just received my salary, I would have less self-control. Although in my area right now, I've not really like I don't really experience that sensation of going to a so-called well-stocked bookshop. The main bookshops that I have in my city is actually kind of like a retail chain store. Usually if you go to those kinds of bookstores, most of the things that you'll find there are books that are currently popular or currently hot. So if you want to find books that are kind of like say modern classics or backlisted books, it will be kind of difficult. So if I were to go to those books, chances are I'm going to see the new releases. which aren't exactly my thing because they tend to be quite expensive also. I much prefer used books, and unfortunately I don't have any kind of used bookstore in my city, or at least I don't know any that exists, so I've never been to one. But I like to go to websites that sell used books, and with that my self-control will be much less. Number 8, do you ever feel the need to take a break from books? And if so, what form does it take? Yes, sort of related to question number 1. I have to take breaks from books from time to time, especially because of things that are going on outside. Sometimes I would experience less energy, sometimes it would be like my mood, or I would feel anxious and stuff like that. So usually I just do other things, other random things. Sometimes I would just I would take a walk outside, but nowadays it's kind of difficult to do that. It's kind of tedious with you having to wear a mask, and you don't really have like access to so many places that you could go to. I couldn't actually go to cafes these days because dine-ins are not allowed yet in my country. So there are also other kinds of hobbies that I could do. Listening to music, I like to cook, and sometimes I dance, but usually it's just those things. I'm a really boring person. So number 9, when you meet a new person, how long does it take you to bring up books? And based on experience for this question, whenever I meet a new person, I never bring up books, like never. In fact, if I were to meet with a new person later on, I will not bring up books with them first. Usually, if the topic of books came up in our discussion, it's usually because they were the ones who spotted my interest in books. Maybe they saw my Instagram, maybe they saw me reading, and that would be how books, ended up in our discussion. But I will never bring up books with a new person because chances are they are not really big readers, or they're not even readers, and most of my friends are not really readers, and that's why I make booktube channel. Number 10, have you given any thought or made any provisions for your personal library after you croak? Nothing really concrete, nothing really pragmatic for now, but I do think about it from time to time, and honestly I'm not sure to whom I'll be giving it to, but I'll probably give it to give my collection to my family, my parents or my sister, and I just hope that the books are not disposed of, are not burned. I would kind of have this like really horrible image in my head where I imagine that my book collection is being burned, being engulfed in flames. It's really dramatic, but it's really scary. So, number 11, are you known among your friends and loved ones for your weird and probably unhealthy relationship with books? And I'm not sure how they think about my relationship with books, but I feel that my parents are fine with my relationship with books. My sister is fine as well. In general, my family is quite fine with my relationship with books. And my friends, they would probably think that I read more than I actually do. So I guess they know about it. Maybe less among my friends, because You know, I do have a Bookstagram account, but I don't have like all of my real life friends following me on my Bookstagram, and I don't exactly have any other social media accounts that is personal or that I use for social purposes. And I also don't really show myself reading in public, because I kind of have this sort of mild aversion towards reading in front of people. Usually when I read, I tend to kind of hide myself or read in a corner. Even in cafes, I would just find a quiet seat. So people don't usually see me read, and that's kind of like how it is. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm really that known about my bookish habits among my friends, but my family, yes, definitely, they know about it. So that's it for the questions in this tag. And since this tag has been floating around for a while now, and I see a lot of people have been doing it, so I'm not going to tag anyone. So that's it for this week's Bookish avec moi, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And yeah, I hope this coming week there will be more videos to come, because, you know, I project that is going to happen, because I feel like my reading mood is going up again. So I'll see you again in a different video. So until then, take care, thanks for watching, and bye.